So I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can do a more in-depth drill down on the host performance of other hosts in your area. It's important because you need to know roughly what the bar is to get over to be successful in your area. It's not nearly as competitive as you think in the sense that you can get killed in this category of, you're not the best host or you're clearly worse than the other host and you'll still get bookings. But if you do better than the other host, you'll get a considerable amount more bookings. You'll have more choices of who you can have into your space and a higher fill rate when you go on vacation. A higher fill rate on vacation means you get more money for your vacation. I'm not going to dwell a ton on this subject, but I think it's a skill set that's worth adding to your toolbox. Previously, we talked about, so you look at a host, or you look at another profile. What is it that you're looking for? We covered a little bit about reviews. We covered a little bit about host metrics. Talk a little bit more about those. Reviews are crucial. And if you really start reading the reviews, and I suggest you read all of them, they're all just a paragraph or two, see what people are mentioning, and you can get an idea of what the host is not doing. You'll notice in the listings or in the reviews, are they mentioning the person by name? Or are they just describing the apartment by itself? Are they talking about things specifically that the host did? That's generally an indication of a more attentive host. A lot of times, they might even say what the host did not do, or they might have a gripe of what the host did not respond to this, or did not fix this, or the host had a certain response. They'll give you a general kind of picture of what they're doing, what they're not doing, whether or not they're attentive, and whether or not they are attentive. If someone says, we were staying there and one of the, the toilet got screwed up, and the host responded saying, okay, we'll fix it in a couple days, clearly that's a host that's not particularly trying. And take a mental note of that. Reviews are pretty much the best way of telling what a host is like, whether or not there's a space to do better than them. I think that's really kind of the big point here is, can you beat them? And more often than not, you have hosts that are just sloppy, and so you don't have to go out of your way to be the best host. And Sarah will cover a little bit of how you can be the best host. If you just keep a reasonable standard of quality, you can actually beat out the people who are vying for the same bookings and the same booking groups. Another thing to look for in reviews, look for the responses that are given by the host and whether or not there are responses. And then look at, for instance, the grammar of how they respond, or look at the tone of how they respond. Good hosts never respond defensively. They never respond in a confrontation kind of style. They never blame it on the other guest. It's perfectly normal for them to respond saying, that's unreasonable, but I will improve in the future. That's typically what you want to see out of a good host. But a lot of times you just get people to post and say, this person's crazy, they don't know what they're talking about. And the thing is that if there's only one time that's happened, then people booking might be forgiving. But if it's happened more than once, it's seriously going to hurt the bookings of that place. And so if you're seeing that there's consistent defensiveness, that means he's not going to improve. Think about if you were booking and you were reading these reviews and you had 10 glowing reviews, but then you had an 11th one that said it was terrible, and then you had a defensive response from the host. That's generally a negative thing. That's something that the host is clearly not doing well. On the flip side, like I was saying, sometimes you get very, very positive review set for a host. You can tell this host is really good at what they do. The host came and brought them gifts. They talked to them for an extended period of time. The guest is conveying a sense of friendship with the host. These are all things that would make you believe that the host is kind of optimizing at least the host experience, because that is one of the big aspects of Airbnb. One of the big differentiation aspects is that you can make yourself a really good host and people can read that in reviews and they're much likely to go book there. Typically, when someone's looking at a property, they're going to look at the reviews, and if the reviews are all positive, but they're not glowing and they're all short and they're all kind of just talking about the space, that's good, definitely. But it's not the same effect of every single person saying, this is a fabulous experience. Here is why. This is how, everything worked out for me. Say a couple's booking for their honeymoon, or say it's a family going on vacation. They look for those experiences. And those experiences and people saying like, what a great host, and this everything was so thoughtful and well appointed, those reviews are going to be exactly what these types of people, what's going to push them over the edge into booking. They might look at a space that's cheaper and seems to be better appointed, but they're going to look at your space and it's cozier and it looks like the host really cares a lot more. That's really going to push them to book with you versus someone else. Another way of analyzing the other hosts in your area is to look at their photographs. That's a very good way of telling how well thought out their space was. It might not be immediately obvious to you whether or not it's a good host or a bad host because say they have the Airbnb photographs and they look fantastic. Well, there's certain things you're looking for that might indicate that the person is better or worse. Something that would indicate that they're better. Airbnb, when they take photographs, they only are going to send you maybe 10, 12 shots. Sometimes they only give you 4 or 5. They're not going to give you 20 shots. But if you go to a page and there's Airbnb photographs and there's 10 of them, but then there's 20 amateur shots by the host, that clearly means that the host is going above and beyond, and they're not interested in just settling for what the Airbnb photographer gave them. We'll cover Airbnb photography in a quick bit in the next section. You should be a little bit acquainted with, most Airbnbs at this point. You can tell from the photographs they have professional photography. It comes from Airbnb. One thing I always see with good hosts that are kind of maximizing their bookings, they'll put photographs that are not Airbnb photographs. You can tell it's an Airbnb provided photograph from an Airbnb photographer if it says at the top verified photo next to the logo of Airbnb. If it does not say that, that means the host took the photo. Sometimes you can notice that the host takes photos that are just as good as Airbnb photos, and you can't tell the difference visually except for the change in the logo. That's something that makes you go, oh wow, the host actually took the time to go out and take professional photographs of the space themselves. They can go and create professional photographs of every single space that the Airbnb photographer wouldn't touch. Another thing you'll notice, good hosts, when they do their photography, they'll take photos of things that are very specific in each room. They'll take a photo of, say, the amenities in their kitchen. So they'll take a photo of the toaster and the microwave so that everyone looking at it goes, oh, they have a toaster and a microwave, can't forget that. Took a photo of the breakfast cereal that we always offer. When you rent my apartment, you will get those. I never buy anything else. I always just buy those because it's exactly what you would expect because you saw the photograph. So that's typically something you'll see. One host in San Francisco, what she did was she made a welcome packet. And that welcome packet was like a basket and had a card in it and it had some candies. She took a photograph of that. Now that's something that screams this host really goes over the top. So what are negative things you'll notice in the photographs? Negative things are things like if they have a spare room or the room that they're renting out, the photograph doesn't capture the entire room in the space. Someone who's going to put time into the photographs is going to find a way of hiding that. And someone who's not going to put time into taking the photographs is going to take a photo like that, where you can only see the corner of the room or the top of the bed or something like that. These are typically things that would indicate that they did this very quickly. While you think it's nuanced, most guests will, at least on a subconscious level, notice these things. So you want to get as many things in the positive column as possible because that's really going to drive bookings. Things that you will see are people who take photographs and they miss a room in their apartment, and you can tell from the other photographs of the apartment. Or they take photographs that are seemingly pointless. One thing that's kind of a pet peeve for me is hosts that take photos and they don't put a subtitle of what we're looking at. Or in the subtitle, they don't sell you. Like they'll take a photograph of their kitchen, and in the kitchen, the subtitle will be kitchen. That's not helpful. That's a space where you can convince this person to come stay with you. Put something else, saying lovely kitchen with all sorts of amenities or something like that. Those are missed opportunities. Those are things I'm looking at and saying, okay, this host clearly is not trying or maximizing their potential. The other thing that I mentioned previously was hosting metrics, and I can go over that a little bit again. I'm sorry if this is redundant, but this is quite important. You can look at their hosting metrics. Like I said before, 100% is standard for response rate. If it's below that, unfortunately, that host cannot make up for that. So if you see a host who has a 75% acceptance rate, you can kind of assume that they're getting probably half the bookings that they should. Because not only are they not responding to 25% of people, most people are going to look at that and go, well, I'm not even going to try because I don't think this host is even going to respond or even going to, walk me through the process. A lot of guests are going to be on the fence. They're not sure. They're coming in late and they don't know if the host is going to respond. That's something, a huge deterrent, and it deters a lot more than what's proportionate in that percentage. It's not going to deter 25% of people if it's a 75% response rate. It's going to deter probably 50% of people. That's something that a host really can screw up. Now, if people around you or your doppelganger, the person you're comparing yourself to before, is missing that or they made some mistakes, great news. You're not going to make that mistake. Response time, again, you want to be within an hour, but it's not a huge deal if it's a couple hours. Generally, what that'll mean, though, is that if someone's coming in and they're just going to message 5 different properties, the person who responds the quickest is most likely going to get that booking, just in general. But if you're not in the mindset you want to book every single night in your apartment, then that's not entirely important. So hosting metrics, very important. These are kind of a general way of giving a grade to someone. Looking at their profile, did they fill out their profile? Did they put a lot of information? Does the photograph have a picture of their face in it? This is a problem with hosts. They'll put a photograph because they think they're being self-conscious, and it's of a group of people. No one wants to book if they don't even know who the host in the photograph is. Maybe it's not a big deal, but on a subconscious level, you want to make a connection to the person's face, who you're going to book with, and whose home you're going to be staying in. So those are all general kind of indications of the host quality. You would be surprised at how low the quality of some of the hosts are. That kind of contributes to my general feeling of optimism in the sense that if you put in a minimal amount of effort, you can be a good host and you can beat out these other properties. So if you're looking at a space and you're saying, my space can't compete against this place and this place, well, look at their hosting records. And if they have bad hosting records, trust me, you can compete with them. If they have a bad response rate, that's something they can't recover from. If they have bad reviews, they're not going to be able to get rid of those. So these are all things that should tell you, yes, this space is open. I can make money on it. At least I can take a number 2 position and I can still get bookings. Again, if you guys have any questions on this, ask me in the group discussions. The main point through this lecture was 3 things you're looking at: photos, reviews, metrics. Those are the 3 ways you can give a grade to the host. The point is, lots of bad hosts in your area. That means there's lots of opportunity for you to beat out the category, to beat them out, and to get more bookings.